what is starting to come up more and more is this balance between the need to access global scale and have global acceleration of the innovation and the pace of AI that we are seeing, but also the consideration of sovereign AI. And Chairman Che kind of talked about self-reliance, sovereignty, and how essentially kind of Korea is looking to build its own stack. Any thoughts or perspectives in balancing global scale with sovereign considerations?
Yeah, there's some hard questions that I think lots of governments out there are thinking about and lots of economies are thinking about. I do think that there is no one country stack all the way through. I think when you look at a technology stack, no one AI stack can be built in any one country. We need foundries and TSMC, we need memory and HBM that's built here in Korea, we need technology and cloud technologies that are built in the US, we need networking technologies that are built, if you really look at all of the pieces that go in together to building a critical AI stack, it's a global economy and it's a global technology stack. That said, I think there is a lot of benefits to having local infrastructure as well, and so that's part of what we're partnering on. But it's not just local infrastructure. I'd emphasize, I think sometimes people think about the location of the data center as somehow a magical thing that will solve all problems. At AWS, actually, when we built our cloud technologies from the very beginning, we thought deeply actually about how do you think about data locality as a critical building block of that customers are going to care about. And so when we designed all of our services, we designed them from the very ground up from the very first day that data never leaves a region that you put it in unless you move it. And so that was kind of a fundamental building block for us. And we've been adding technology over and above that for the last 20 years that kind of built into this concept that we now call sovereign by design. And what sovereign by design means is that there is no way to access your data. Your data stays where you put it. You control where your data goes, when you move it around locations, and where it stays. And I think that is actually one of the most critical capabilities that we provide to people. Now, there are some workloads where people want those to run in country, and there's a reason why we built regions in many of the largest countries all throughout the globe. And companies and businesses and governments appreciate having that locality, and that's part of what we're building with AI zones here in Korea. But we've had our Korean region here launched for many years, and when you put data in that Korean region, it never leaves. It stays in that region unless you as a customer move it. And I think some of those promises, together with encryption, as a secondary protection against your data, and then encryption with customer-controlled keys. So as a vendor, we can't even, if we ever wanted to access or decrypt data because you actually control those keys, we build layers and layers and layers of protection on top of that, so that sovereign by design is not just have to be controlled by one vendor, but you don't have to give up that root of trust.
Matt, that's actually excellent framing in terms of one global stack, but sovereign by design.
That's right.
In terms of kind of how you view it, how you balance it, how you kind of take it.
And if you think about it, think about many of the very best companies that are built here in Korea. They're not designed to just support the Korean economy here, right? Customers like Samsung have global customers everywhere, and they want to make sure that when they build a capability or a new service or functionality in the cloud, that they can support their customers here, but they can support them in Europe, they can support them in the United States and all around the world. And that's true not just for large companies. I think we work with actually many of the top Korean startups, and the startups are quite excited how the cloud can actually help them expand their reach, and so that they can actually be selling, one company that I've worked closely with, 12 Labs, they provide an LLM capability, but they want that availability for everybody, not just for somebody here in Korea.
You guys certainly mentioned about new functionality coming up in the cloud. Chairman Che talked about agentic AI.
Yeah.
Agents are actually now kind of starting to percolate and become a lot more ubiquitous, and perhaps the best way of thinking of them is less about functionality or tool, and more about having agency to become a digital workforce by itself. many times augmenting the human workforce.
Yeah.
How does AWS kind of see that, particularly as you look to transform the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, I think like when I talk to a bunch of companies out there, and I'm sure many of you this will resonate with, is that if you wind the clock back 2 years ago, everybody was super excited about getting proof of concepts out. They just wanted to see what this magical new technology AI was capable of doing. And there's every company out there had chatbots on their website, and they had kind of content summarization. And then everybody kind of started to look at the costs of AI and the value that they were actually delivering with their business. And I'm sure you see this with your clients every single day. And that math wasn't quite working out, and the return that they were getting on some of that investment. Now, it didn't mean that AI is not valuable, it was just early. And so, as we start to see agents really starting, that technology is becoming more and more production ready, I'll say, that's where I really start to see customers get real actual production value out of AI. And I actually think in the fullness of time, 80 to 90% plus of the value people see out of AI is going to come from agents. Not by the way, you know, when you think about it as a supplement of your workforce, I think that's a useful construct to think about how you think about agents, but it really is superpowering your workforce, right? It's not replacing your workforce, but it is making your workforce 2 times, 3 times, 10 times more effective. I have a fun story from inside of Amazon. We have a technology team, and we have a service that we have inside of Amazon that we built. And we originally built this service, and it took about 18 months and 100 people to go build this service. And the service, you know, and it's an AI service. And that AI service, you know, the requirements changed, the scale changed, how we want to manage capacity changed. So we kind of needed to go rewrite that. And I challenged the team. I said, I know this took you 100 people to go write the first time, you guys using agentic coding and AI coding. I want you to try to go rewrite this not in 18 months, but in 9 months, and not with 100 people, but with 30 people. And one particular of my engineers said, you know, hold on, let me come back to you in a couple days. He came back a couple days later, and he said, give me 5 people. And I think I can do it with 5 people. I said, okay, that seems bizarre. Usually teams don't come back and say they want fewer people, but I'll take it. And he went with 5 people and delivered the whole service in 60 days with just 5 people. And so part of the interesting thing about that story was they just did agentic coding the entire time. He and the 5 people, every piece of code that they wrote was with agentic coding. And it turns, you know, there's a very strong development team. It kind of turned them into 10x developers, where they were able to develop at 10x the speed that they would have otherwise if they were just sitting there coding by themselves. And I think that that's a good analogy for what many companies are going to be able to accomplish out there with agents. And coding agents are probably the furthest along today, and so they're some of the most tangible examples. But I think we'll build agents across many different industries, whether they're in medicine or whether they're financial services or whether they're in retail. And these agents are going to superpower your workforce so that we can all develop and actually produce that much more than we were able to in the past.
I love the concept of 10x because cloud made access ubiquitous, but with agentic AI in particular, now essentially the leverage and the efficiency has become a force multiplier in its own sense.
Yeah, and I'll say one of the things that I think slows companies down though is that there is some fear, right? There's fear that you have agents going out there and doing work on your behalf, and how do you control the agents, and the infrastructure to go build and drive and manage agents is nascent. And part of what we're doing at AWS is producing building blocks that allow companies to basically construct agents in a way that allows them to scale, that allows them to be secure, that allows them to be durable and auditable, so that when you go build agents, you can know what they're doing, you can control what they're doing, but have a lot of flexibility so that they can also be creative out there and go build and deliver on your behalf. And I think if we can, as an industry, do a great job of having a great set of models, a great set of agentic building blocks, and a great set of controls that allows companies to feel comfortable putting these agents out there in production, I think that's where a lot of that benefit.
Player around the world, we've accelerated automation efficiency. Now we're giving wings and increasing the pace of agentic AI and everything that you could have articulated. What next? What next for AWS over the next few years?
Well, I'll tell you, our goal is, when you talk to customers, they just want to go build and go faster, right? Like, you rarely find a company or a set of real builders who really want to lean forward that say, I wish we could innovate more slowly. I wish I could just kind of go a little bit slower. Actually, sometimes CEOs and other leaders do say they wish the world would go a little bit more slowly, but I kind of view our job as to help people go fast. And so we're constantly looking for ways that we can take kind of that extra toil from companies, from builders, from enterprises, and from governments that isn't differentiated, it doesn't distinguish company A from company B, but it's work that everybody has to do. And so our job and how I think about it is all of the work that every company has to do, or lots of companies have to do, or lots of industries have to do, we want to take on that work so that those, our customers can really lean into what makes them unique, right? If you're sitting there and doing drug design, building a compute infrastructure is not something that's interesting in discovering new cures for cancer. If you're out there, you're trying to build the very best in cool televisions, which we saw some very cool ones at the Tech Expo. Television technology is really what you want. If somebody can help you build a supply chain system that helps make your supply chain more seamless and more efficient and lower cost, that's a great thing that we can take on for people. And so our view is that we really want to lean in together with our partners, by the way. And it's not just AWS. I think that's like lower cost infrastructure that goes faster and makes it easier for people to use and easier to get value from their data, and gets that infrastructure out of the way so that it's really that partner ecosystem that can then go develop.
Well, Matt, that was a lot of good wisdom in a short period of time, particularly as it relates to the points that you articulated. We're all part of a global economy. Our companies and much of the work that we do serve global customers, but we can also be conscious about sovereign by design. And as we do that, let's be thoughtful, let's move fast, and let's create the 10x leverage that you talked about, given the efficiency and the ability to augment the human workforce through the agents that are being developed.
Yeah, it really is an exciting time to be in business and technology. It's, I think there's not that many times throughout our careers that we get to engage with a technology disruption that's as large as AI, I think, has potential to be. And so you think about cloud, you think about the internet, you think about AI, it really has a transformational potential to change how much of work is being done. And frankly, I think the good that we can build and the value that we can build for society. So I've never been more excited about the future potential, and it's exciting to be here and listen to how others are thinking about it as well. Because I think jointly as a community, that's how we really, really unlock the full potential of that technology.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Great.
Wonderful catching up, and hopefully the audience kind of was able to kind of partake in that wisdom from Matt.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give them another round of applause. Thank you.